Okay. Uh, We're going to hear about the do's and don'ts of advertising today, how to keep yourselves out of trouble. Thank you for your attention to Danielle.
Some of you know me, so I am Danielle, and I'm an instructor here with GHAR. And in that capacity, your leadership has asked me to talk about advertising. And advertising is one of my most passionate issues because people do it so poorly. And for me, it matters so much because it's one of those things that, one, there's so many rules about it, and so we're going to cover that. But it's also just a reflection of who you are as an individual, because there are rules, there are laws actually about advertising, and it's so frequently violated. But I think that we should look at it a different way, which is that who we are as a business person, how we do one thing is how we do all things, right? And so if you want to be a realtor with integrity and follow the rules and protect your clients, you really do have to follow all of the laws, right? All of them, they all matter. For various reasons. But how we follow the law is knowing it, right? We need to know the rules and the laws so that we make sure that we follow them. So most of us know some of the basics. What's the most fundamental advertising law that you guys know?
Your logo can't be larger than the broker's.
Okay, so brokers' name and information is more prominent, or we'll clear that up.
My phone number, broker phone number.
Broker name and phone number, right? That's the one we kind of all know, right? But there's so much more than that. But that's the one we see violated quite frequently, right? So we're going to go over a ton of different rules. Here's some of them. There are so many rules, not just that broker name and phone number. We've got RELRA, which is our Real Estate Licensing and Registration Act, or our Real Estate Commission. So some of our advertising rules come from that. Then we have our Code of Ethics, which layers in on top of it. Fair housing has some rules regarding that, which you probably learned about this cycle since it was one of our required classes. We've got our realtor trademark. I decided to wear this on purpose. I am a demonstration, okay? Visual aid, if you will. Bright has their rules, okay? We've got Regulation Z, copyright laws. We'll touch on them kind of at the end. But there are so many, so I get, right? There's rule fatigue we have, yes. But again, we're going to go over some of the most important ones for you guys to remember. As way of background about me, one thing that I do, which is very helpful in education scenarios and training and mentoring and leadership, helping leadership lead, which is what I help your leadership do from time to time and being here with them today, is I keep a spreadsheet on every single RELRA violation that occurs in Pennsylvania. So I see the cases, I see how the Real Estate Commission enforces the rules they have. I see the fines that they levy, okay? So for example, right now we're in the CE cycle. You don't do your CE or you renew before you do the classes. The fines range from $1,400 to $2,800. Right now, we even just saw yesterday, we saw a couple that were really accidental. They did them kind of in the wrong order, just didn't realize what they were supposed to take. They still fined them $2,800. Okay, so just word to the wise for the CE people situation there. So from RELRA, we got one of the basic ones here, the business name on advertisements. We know we have to have the brokerage name and telephone number on all advertisements, okay? Even if your name does not appear, your name does not have to appear. The agent's name does not have to be there. Broker name and phone number, okay? Abbreviations are not enough. I saw a Keller Williams get fined because they did KW, right? CB, IVRE. Now some of I know you guys, the Western front, if you will, is branding or registering as IVRE straight up, okay? You can use IVRE in addition, but you need to have your registered broker name in that advertisement somewhere. Again, if you want to have that and then have like the IVRE as like a splashy logo and then additional, but that is not enough. Then you will get fined for that.
Does that go for your signs too?
Yes, so you can have the IVRE on there, but the Iron Valley Real Estate of Central PA, I think is what you guys are. Don't quote me, or you guys know better than I do specifically, but that needs to be on there. And the prominence factor, which was mentioned, would hold true. So as long as, and it's same size as now, okay? So it used to be more prominent than was the wording. Now it is same size. So as long as your name and Iron Valley Real Estate Central PA are of the same size where the brokerage is larger, you can have IVRE as big as you want. It's the same as having a balloon for Remax or a flower or any other branding logo, fun pictures. You can have whatever you want on there. As long as the size prominence is maintained between the brokerage name and your name, okay? You can have additional things. But you have to have the brokerage name and phone number, right? And they do fine people for the size differential. Me personally, I was like, I'm just happy it's on there. Like, to me, that's an accomplishment in the realtor world that people are doing it. You know, I mean, obviously an extreme case would be necessary, but you know, they are catching people for the prominence differential. The first one up there, section 301, is unauthorized advertising and solicitation. Okay. We cannot advertise the sale or lease of real estate without the authority of the seller or lessor. In the code of ethics, it says without written permission, something to that effect. So that one seems obvious. Like, we're not like the Easter Bunny. We don't go running around putting signs in people's yards overnight. Like, you get a sale sign. But what we're talking about here is all of the sellers signing the listing agreement, right? How many of you guys are pulling the deed before a listing? Okay, not enough hands are going up. We gotta pull deeds, okay? You gotta pull the deed before you list a house. We have to know who's on the deed. Tax records are not sufficient, okay? The tax records are not always accurate. They don't always list everybody. Sometimes they're not even updated, right? Sometimes it's the prior owners there. Sometimes we got a third person on the deed. Sometimes we've got a life estate, hiding in there. But anyone who's on that deed has to sign your listing contract. We have seen violations with fines for that. Okay, we've seen deals be reversed, not having everyone sign. We've seen deals fall through. Okay, because not all parties signed the contract. Okay, that's a voidable contract at the option of the unsigned seller. Okay. Lots of time, money, and effort wasted there, but also violations, okay, against your permanent record. Got to know who's signing. Same with operating agreements for LLCs. Got to know who's the authorized member. Estate paperwork for estates. Who's the executor? Who's the administrator? We've got to have that paperwork, okay? There's a licensing violation that comes down to being able to advertise something for sale. Got to have that, okay? These are just examples I found online. It's hard to find simple examples, but you guys know what it looks like, right? Call me today. It's just like their information, no brokerage information. It was really odd that they have the same last name as me with the same spelling. But see that? I was like, what are the odds? Same one over here. Just contact info is just the number and the website or email address. Be really careful of like stock websites that you can buy that are very, you can only change a few fields on them because they don't have template information or room for office numbers. So just be careful when you're doing any kind of, super simple website, do your DIY type stuff because they may not have space for it. These are good examples where the agent had like the brokerage info. This is the specific, Century 21 office. I'm not sure which one. I'm guessing this might be the office number, and then this is her cell phone and her name. So again, very prominently displayed. Another one, again, pretty prominent. She does have realtor wrong. We'll get to the realtor brand first or later. But her cell phone is here. Such one is very large. The office number is pretty large. Hers is a little more prominent. But I mean, pretty, you kind of got it pretty large. She's at least made the effort. Again, realtor is wrong, but we'll get to the realtor formatting in a minute. Facebook. So the state has very specific preferences in how your Facebook page is formatted in terms of where the information is. Okay. And this is the beauty of the spreadsheet, my beautiful spreadsheet, is because they don't tell you this stuff, right? The state is not forthcoming with guidance. Right? They're gonna fine you for it, but they're not gonna tell you how to do it. And that's where I come in, is the translator between the two. So this is a pretend Facebook page as if I was a realtor. And in this graphic, there's some sort of messaging, Sometimes it's true. And that's the thing is, down here, you guys can't see it, but down here would be a cell phone number, which most of you have your Facebook pages set up as, right? And your information, okay? My name and realtor formatted properly, okay? This is bad, okay? Cell phone only, no brokerage name or phone number, okay? I'm gonna show you the good way, what they want. Okay, that's my teaching company, so no brokerage information. What they want is the office information. I'm old school, I have a journalism degree, above the fold, if you will, like a newspaper used to say above the fold, okay? On the first glance up on the page, okay? They want that information. So you can include your cell phone up here if you want to, but cell phone is here. Brokerage name, brokerage phone number. You can put the brokerage phone number here if you want, here, okay? But anything deeper than that is a no. If you have to go into the About tab to find broker name and phone number, they call that the expanded notations. Insufficient, you will get a fine. They don't want that, okay? So, whatever you do, it has to be on this glance, somewhere, broker name and phone number. Some people put it here. Some people put is Danielle Wynn, Grand Valley Real Estate of Central PA, however you want to do it. Yours is a little long for that. Some places have smaller names, works out better. But somehow need to get it on that first glance. First top half, like you don't have to, like you just scroll, kind of, right, you're scrolling. But that is what they want. There have been cases with actual, attachments of printouts of people's Facebook pages that I've seen. They're examples. Right? That's Facebook. Again, this is all state guidance right now. Team advertising guidelines. So the team advertising, the state has put out guidelines. Okay, and a lot of people have rested their hat on the fact that this is guidelines and not actually in the statute. So first, let's review the guidelines. The team name has to be the licensed or registered nickname of a licensee on the team. Okay, cannot be a fictitious name. On all advertisements except business cards, all team members must be listed. Okay, I definitely don't see that happening. I'm guilty of not doing that myself. I think a lot of us forget that that's a rule. We cannot have any unlicensed individuals, office staff, etc., cannot be listed or pictured. So only licensed individuals can be listed. Obviously, we're all going to be from the same company. That's silly. All of the same advertising guidelines apply in terms of broker name, phone number, prominence, all of that. And the team advertising cannot be false, misleading, or deceptive. Okay. And that's when we say that, we mean, oh, you're welcome to take pictures of my slides. I saw someone doing it. You're welcome to do that. Please feel free. This is where the enforcement comes in. Okay, so acceptable, the Benjamin Franklin team. Pretty much it. Okay. Unacceptable versions, the Franklin team, the Benjamin Franklin group, Franklin and Associates, the Franklin home team. Okay, all of those variations are not okay.
What about the exceptional Ben Franklin team, or the Ben Franklin awesome team?
Well, that's very subjective. And if we're talking about the Hovetter exceptional Hovetter team, which I think is what you're getting at, that's just incorrect. Not gonna have our balance. Yeah, no adjectives there.
Okay, so no descriptors, just the facts.
Just the facts, man.
Yeah.
Here's where we get into trouble. Here's the two statutes they're using for enforcement. First one, misleading or untruthful advertising, okay? Because you're making it look like a brokerage, and it's not, okay? So anything that makes it sound like a company and not a team, they're calling it misleading advertising. And then the next one, because you're making it look like a brokerage, is directly or indirectly engaged in or held out as or advertised as conducting the business or capacity of a broker without being licensed. So they're saying you're holding yourself out as a brokerage or company without being properly licensed to do so. Okay, so those are the two statutes people are getting hit with. Here is another quote from the commission that I saw recently that kind of furthers their opinion, because I thought group would be fine, honestly. I mean, I'm not in charge of anything. I was like, group, the bank group, that's close enough. That's close, you know, who am I? They said, although the commission appears to allow some use of team names by licensed real estate salespersons, the commission appears to limit what can be used as a team name. Acceptable team names generally avoid use of terms that designate brokerage, such as realty, estates, group, or associates. Thus, the use of the team name, this came from an actual case, Tom and Jerry Estates, or Tom Jerry Estates on the website, Facebook page, and Instagram page is misleading, and they got a $5,000 fine. So, yeah, like I said, now the term group, so we saw one that was Smith Realty Group, they got a $6,000 fine that was levied jointly with the broker. Okay, so these are usually joint with broker for supervision issues. Jane Smith Group was $250. They just didn't like group, but it was still like first name, last name, so they were kind of okay with that. They just didn't like the word group. Smith Realty, $5,000 jointly with broker. Okay, so these team names, they very much do not like that. I've seen ones as high as $7,500 in terms of fines. So, yeah, dislike entirely. Okay. Some advertising fines that we've seen over the couple of years we've been keeping track. And this is not limited to these, but these are some of the common ones. Missing a broker phone number, salesperson's information larger than the broker, bad team names, using another agent's photos, that gets into copyright, which we'll talk about at the end. But using another agent's photos is a licensing violation. TikTok inside a listing, setting it up as a showing and then not taking a buyer with you, but doing a TikTok video, $3,878. And then similarly, an Instagram video, same scenario in another agent's listing, that one was $5,465.
Danielle, is the state or whomever actively looking for this stuff, or is it usually somebody reporting?
It's usually reporting. Yeah. Yeah. They don't have the manpower to look for these things. They're usually by complaint.
Okay.
You can make anonymous complaints on the website, so they can be anonymous. And there's a space on the website to submit photos and images, or supporting documentation. Something like going through a listing is probably a little more involved in terms of like actually having to submit scenarios and information back and forth. An advertising violation is very easy just to submit the actual, pictures and things that you saw. It can be done anonymously pretty easily. Yeah.
The fines seem a little odd, but TikTok's a little less than Instagram.
Yeah, and sometimes it just depends too. When I give you guys these kinds of odd numbers, it usually includes investigation costs, which is why they're odd numbers. I just give you guys the total. I don't break them out. So it just depends on various things. The Instagram video one, that could have been a house that had people with kids and pets, and it was more inconvenient to move them versus a vacant house where the inconvenience was lower. There could have been some, extenuating factors that maybe just upset people more. It also could have been like, this one could have been the agent complaining versus a homeowner complaining, and the commission was more upset. That panel was a little more inflamed by that idea. So different reasons why they could have charged different fines for different amounts, first or second offense, or you never know. So, yeah. The commission has a spread, a range that they can charge up to $10,000 per violation. Then we get any questions on the RELRA stuff? For the moment, okay. I know advertising isn't like the sexiest of topics, but there's these fines, that's exciting, right? People got in trouble. You'll love those. That's the next CE cycle topic I've been told. Is more case scenarios type things, case law. People be doing the things. People be doing the do. So our code of ethics has a whole mismatch of things. So we'll just kind of touch on them, and I'll just I'll point out anything I see as an issue. We should avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, or concealment of pertinent facts. So this comes in two different ways. Obviously, we've got our disclosure law, which is not today's topic. Advertising, though, presenting a true picture. So being careful with our virtual staging, right? I see a lot of people disclosing that on the pictures, which is nice, because I am gullible as all get out. I'm not good at telling. If I can tell it's virtually staged, it's a bad staging. Okay, because I am so bad at telling. I don't know if anyone knows Teresa Howard up in Marysville, classy agent. She had a listing, and the lower level had this huge circular couch, like it looked like it's from the 70s, you know. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And I click the picture, and it goes like it's empty. I was like, oh, I'm so stupid. So gullible. So I'm glad people put a little note, because I'm just not good. My eyes just don't clock it. Like, you know, it's just I don't have the eyes for it. So it's nice that people are labeling those. Just make sure that when you guys are doing with your professional photographers, right? Like making sure that they're not over editing, taking out flaws. You know, it's really important. They're doing their best job, right? They're doing what they're supposed to do, which is make pictures pretty. You know, it's your job to make sure that you're also having a good partnership with them and training them into your ethics, right? So when you start working with a new photographer or someone new's getting in the business of photography, just making sure you're having a good dialogue with them back and forth about the code of ethics and the requirements that you have in terms of these don't need to be the prettiest pictures, they need to be the most accurate quality photos, right? That's really important. We should not print or circulate any kind of discriminatory imagery. There was a case interpretation for fair housing. You guys may have heard this story. I don't know who was all in my fair housing classes because I taught so many, so I apologize if this is a repeat for any of you. But there was a case interpretation that came down from NAR, and I've gotten this question a lot, so I'm just going to share it with you guys for going forward, because again, it is a question that comes up. Someone was found in violation of the code of ethics. So the case pattern was that the seller had Confederate imagery, flags or something somewhere on the property, right? And we can't tell sellers to remove, you know, things from their home, but the agent had taken photos and then disseminated the photos, right, through the MLS and websites. So a complaint came into the code of ethics against the agent for disseminating exclusionary imagery, right? And so they did find them in violation. So again, it wasn't the homeowner's, you know, contents or property, it was disseminating of the images. So just be careful with the distinction between the two, right? We can't force a homeowner to modify their home. You know, we can encourage, you know, depersonalization, of course, but just be careful not to then take images of that nature and redistribute, okay? I can't promise every panel would find the same way, but having that case interpretation as a precedent, they may look to that for guidance, okay? So just know that the difference between those two parts of that case scenario was the dissemination of the imagery was the problem, all right? Again, we have to ensure that our status is readily apparent in our advertising. We should not represent that our services are free to people unless it is truly free. That came about a while back, kind of before the NAR settlement was kind of boiling up. So no saying our stuff is free. And of course, not advertising without authority. So same thing as RARA, kind of matching that, right? So knowing who's passes on our listing. Shall not advertise real estate services or listed property without disclosing the name of that realtor's firm. So again, brokerage name. If we have ownership interest, we need to disclose our status as both owner or landlord and realtor. So make sure we're proper disclosures in our advertisements when necessary. And if we are going to advertise that we participated in the sale of a property, we have to be one of the transaction participants. So if you're the buyer agent, you can advertise that you sold a property. You can do that. And not using any misleading URLs, domains, or images, okay? So you can't go get a website that is next homey capital area, right? Like something really close to a brokerage that we have, and then have it route to yours. Something like that would be a violation, okay? then we've got fair housing. So we do have our fair housing advertisement guidelines as well, which again, you probably learned about already this season, because I wrote that class. So does this look familiar if you took it? Well, we know that, right? Describe the property, not the purchaser. Use diverse imaging in your advertising. This one's actually good for business, which is why I like this piece of advice. It's not just a good fair housing principle, but seniors are especially, they say statistically, responsive to advertisements that show themselves in it. Okay, so it's actually really good for your business to diversify. It's very natural for us to just choose images that look like ourselves. We're still working with, reptile brain, right? We're not that far from caveman DNA. And sameness equals safeness. It's just natural for us to just go, oh, these people look like me, stick them in the picture and move on. So just challenge yourself to diversify what your ads look like. You will open up your business to more people because they'll see themselves in that picture and go, oh, I could buy a house. I could do that. Okay. Secular holiday marketing is okay. So Santa, Easter Bunny, leprechauns, eggs, all the good fun commercialism stuff, all the Hallmark things are fine. Okay. I don't think advertising placement is a concern anymore because we have the internet. And then word choice. HUD no longer has a word list. For those of you who've been doing it long enough that you've seen the list of good, bad, maybes. There's no longer a list. It doesn't mean you can say anything you want. It just means that now they're going to look at it as a matter of intent. So they're going to do basically a case-by-case analysis of what is the intent to be exclusionary and go from there. So not as much of a pass-fail just on the word alone. Now the realtor trademark, because that is often also very wrong a lot of the time. Not just the way it's formatted, but the way it's used. So the realtor trademark means member of NAR, which also is NAR, not NAR. So GHAR, PAR, and NAR. Okay. So realtor means member of NAR, and that's how it should be used. So we, as being a member of NAR, were granted a limited license to use the term and trademark. Okay, so it is a trademarked term that we are allowed to use, and it comes with rules. Okay, so it's technically not supposed to be used, and I'm guilty of this. We're not supposed to use it as a profession. I'm a realtor. I mean, we are realtors. We're members of NAR, but not supposed to be used as a job title. But we all do it, right? People do it. So when you're not sure if you're using it correctly, they say use the member test. Okay, like could you substitute what you're saying as member of NAR, right? Oh, what do you do for a living? I'm a realtor, right? I'm a member of NAR. Like that doesn't really convey it. That's how you're supposed to do it, okay? And I'm not saying you all can't just talk normal after you leave here. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you what it does say. I'm just informing you on what they're meant to say. I'm not saying you can't say I'm a realtor. Okay. No one's policing that much, okay? But the format, to some degree, they've actually renewed enforcement extremely. They have a whole new department that does enforce like the online stuff, okay, which I'll talk to you about. So the three main rules that you do need to worry about, like I said, it's not like you can't go to a networking event and say I'm a realtor, okay? I'm not going to tell on you. The realtor mark must be formatted properly, okay? Descriptive wording may not be used with the realtor marks. And number 3, again, is the one that I don't think people are going to go tattletaling you on, but the contextual uses of the term, okay? So let's talk about how it has to be formatted. Realtor, all capitals with the trademark R, okay? That is how it's supposed to look. Now, to get the little R very quickly and easily, I forget what it is on Mac because I don't do Mac, but if you're on a computer, regular one, Windows, if you hold down the Alt button and type 0174 and let go of all of it together at the same time, it will appear. If you hold Alt 0174 and let go, it will pop up pretty much everywhere. Facebook, Word documents, anywhere you are. I use that all day long, all the time, okay, constantly. If you are on some sort of social media platform, some sort of, whatever you're in, software, Instagram, something like that, it does not allow for that formatting. These are the two alternatives that they will allow, right? Big, uppercase, all little with the R, or all capitals with no R. Because some, like Twitter, I think doesn't allow for the little R. I don't tweet, I don't do the things. But the two nevers is never all lowercase. And no Futura, I think it's supposed to be black. Futura black, not bad, that's my fault. Font. The reason for the font is because when you do it, it looks too much like this, like the R on my shirt, like the logo. That's why I wore this today. Okay. If you would like realtor gear, visit the store. The office. I'm also a salesman. So those are the formats that they want to see, right?
For Mac, it's option R.
Option R, I knew it was option something, option R, that's easy, there you go, thank you. So proper formatting, which also I am guilty of not being perfect with, although I did see someone the other day on Facebook and I was really surprised, they had it like this, and I was surprised, so I was like, that would bother me. Like I wanted to be centered in it, like, but they did, I was like, look at them. So they want a comma because it's an identifier. It's John Smith, Realtor. Like that's who they are. It's an identifier. Okay. And you don't need punctuation if it comes before Realtor John Smith. Right? She's just a member of a group. That is what it is. Okay. But yeah. The second one makes my eye twitch a little, but that's just me. That's the rule. Okay. I like it nice and centered. So again, like on my graphics, I am guilty of doing like just the underneath. Okay. Again, do I think they're going to come after you for a comma on a graphic? Probably not. What they are going to come after you for is probably the next one or this one and the next one. Proper formatting. Okay. They don't want the cutesy stuff. They don't want you mangling the word. Okay. I think there's shirts out there with like the Friends font. Yeah. They're probably not going to be fans of that. They track that down, right? Or anything cute, okay? And I know up till now, we've seen a lot of this going on. I think it was last August, they hired a new, I think she was an attorney, and I'm not sure what else her background is. They've ramped up this enforcement. They're even going after state associations, local associations, them internally over improper formatting.
I know where there's a billboard with the Friends font.
Oh,
Yeah. I do too.
yeah. Yeah, the enforcement is no joke right now. They are very, very heavy on enforcement. So again, the enforcement is mostly going to come from self-policing. So if you don't like somebody, I don't know, whatever. But if also like you make someone mad and you're in violation, be careful, right? And right now with local offers and sour grapes and stuff, I just wouldn't risk it because who wants to pay fine right now?
What would they say if you had realtor on a license plate?
That's a good question. Probably not. I mean, again, they're probably not going to like it unless you spell it out properly. Now, you probably don't need the trademark because there's a
It's realtor. Realtor on a license plate, on a Pennsylvania license. That was wrong. Spelled wrong.
That top one.
yeah, probably not. I don't know. Well, the person who license plate will know someone's tablet on them. Right?
It's like insurance commercial, at least they call it.
So this is the ones also that they really don't want. Okay, it's the description. So the description is the one they really, really don't like, right? Top Harrisburg Realtor, hometown Realtor, best Realtor. And this is where, at first people are like, what does it matter? Well, it does, because one, it's a rule. But two, people are gaining unfair competitive advantages, right? I could be the Rainbow Realtor. I could build an empire on that.
You did.
I don't, you won't see it in writing anywhere. People know it, people say it. I've never done it. It's not you. You can scour my Facebook pages, but I could sell merch. I mean, I could literally build an empire, but because I follow the rules, I don't. But there are other people who don't follow the rules, building empires on these concepts. So we either have to all follow the rules or we don't. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's why these rules, the standards, we have to follow them. Because other people are going to gain competitive advantage over others, and that's not fair, right? That's not right. They have the rules for a reason, it's their trademark, they make the rules. So, nothing before, nothing like it is merely a membership in a group. That is what it is. Right? And that's where the contextual uses come in, is again, it's deferring back to a membership in a group. That is all it really truly is. These are just examples, right? How many realtors will be at the state association meeting today? That's correct, right? How many members of the association are going to be there? John Doe's a lawyer and a licensed realtor. Technically, that's wrong. He's not a licensed realtor. He's a licensed salesperson. Like that's his profession, right? And that's how it's written there at the bottom. Okay, just to give an example of kind of what it's meant to be. There's the website for the renewed enforcement. You just go and you fill out the form and you tell all your friends. But it's not to say go tell all your friends, it's just to let you know that they are ramping up that information. Okay, just to be aware of it. So again, I would just focus on not using the things before it, right? And try your best to format it properly when possible, right? That's not meaning you have to go around being scared of everything, but don't go nuts. I wouldn't do a billboard like this, you know what I mean? Nothing crazy, okay? Bright does have some rules as well. We're familiar with, I'm sure, some of them. The main thing is we don't want any information about you, the listing agent, in the listing, right? In the remarks, in the photos, any of that kind of stuff. We don't want to reuse anybody else's material. That's their creative material that gets into the copyright. You don't want to copy paste agent remarks from a prior listing and reuse them. You need to write your own remarks. They do want at least one photo submitted and one curbside photo included. But most of this is all not having, you know, your listing sign in it. They don't want people in the images, although you see that from time to time, and that's not the end of the world. Kind of laugh like those aren't great photos, but you know, roll your eyes and move on. You know, it kind of is what it is, but they would prefer that not be there. Okay, but they're too big to police that. But they will usually catch the you know, signs and your own. Be careful of course, your associated documents having your information, make those agent only, right? Again, they don't want images of people. That happens. Right? No contact information, no signs, no logos. Regulation Z just talks about not having mortgage terms in your advertisements. If you use a term like the mortgage payment or something like that, that could trigger the need for a ton of mortgage terms. All of those, including the APR and things like that. So if you want to advertise the great affordability of a home, just work with your lender. The lender has tons of postcards and flyers and options that you can use. They have the team to do all those compliance pieces and make sure that they have all of the disclosures required. That's what I always recommend, especially for like an open house. You can do like different payment scenarios, side-by-side comparisons. Just let your lender do that. They'll co-brand it with you, but there's no harm in that. And they'll have all the proper disclosures on those. I don't see this happening very often, so I don't think it's a pervasive problem. I saw it one time and I knew the agent really well, so I just was like, hey, be careful. You can't really put that out there kind of all on its own, because that is federal law. So just be careful of that. Don't get in the weeds with payment and terms and things. And then copyright laws. Just get permission before using other people's photos. Even a celebratory, like under contract, just message the agent and just be like, hey, you know, it's kind of a distance from my house. Do you mind if I use one of your photos for an under contract post? Most agents are pretty nice if you ask them, but don't just assume you can use their photos. Okay, those are their photos. Make sure you understand your photography contract with whoever you use for photos. Those could be limited for time and scope and how you use those. I've seen some things in some realtor groups about this recently, not locally, but national groups. And I mean, I know I have a great relationship with my photographer. I'm sure you all do as well. But it's just good to understand to make sure that you're using everything properly. And just make sure also with your social media graphics, anything you're using online, that you're using images that you have license to use. So Canva, whether you're using like the premium or the account, you can't just like Google images and use them. You know, would you get in trouble? You know, maybe never. Could you? Yeah, you could. So just make sure you're using proper websites, you know, Shutterstock, iStock, Unsplash and Pexels are free. Other people in here who do a lot of graphic work probably have plenty more recommendations than I do for that. I just use Canva and that keeps me, you know, safe. But just make sure you're being careful not to use other people's images without proper licensure for those. Well, that's all I have. Unless people have questions, I can address plenty of rules to follow. But as you can see, it is a lot more than you think, really, to kind of stay above board. So, any questions?
Questions? Has anyone been caught for improperly using or doing any of this stuff?
Chris? Oh, yeah, the ball
Well,
realtor.
yeah, I got a phone call from council. And I reluctantly, but took it back, it was fast as I could.
Yeah, forgot about that.
After some grumbling.
Yes, I agree.
You're right, yeah. Yeah.
But it opens your eyes and you're driving down the street like every day going, well, that's wrong.
Sure do.
There's And what about using a realtor in an advertisement for profit? Can you do that?
I believe I read that you can, yes, you can sell merch and stuff that has the realtor on it as long as it's properly formatted.
What about a TV commercial where I say, not only am I a client, but I'm a realtor and I recommend this roofing company? That's fine. Okay. Just curious. Just curious. Okay, hypothetically, that happens.
It's actually funny, my, an agent that I know actually works for you guys.
Sorry.
Your agents has a website. And it's, because he got a call. Someone reported him for
Yeah.
realtorin.com. And they said, no, you're mangling the word. He said, my name is Torin.
Bitch.
I'm the real.
Wow, I'm cutting that.
Oh, I love that.
I-
He was like,